The twin suns of Vornis burned above the desert sky, painting the grand arena with golden light. The air shimmered with heat and the crowd filled every tier of the towering stands. Thousands of alien warriors and citizens had gathered for the Galactic Duel Festival, a yearly event where the strongest champions from many worlds tested their skills. Music roared from the crystal speakers and banners of glowing color waved through the air. The smell of metal, oil, and dust mixed together, the scent of war and pride. At the center of the arena stood the duel grounds, a wide circle of polished stone surrounded by energy walls that hummed softly. Across the field, alien announcers shouted names in deep echoing voices. One by one, champions stepped forward in shining armor, showing their weapons to the crowd. Swords of plasma, spears of light, and shields made from dark matter gleamed under the suns. Every weapon looked like a work of art, built with technology far beyond Earth's simple steel. The audience waited for the next fighter. Their cheers rose high when a tall alien warrior entered from the west gate. His armor was deep blue, carved with symbols of victory. He was Tarek, the undefeated champion of Vornis. He had fought 70 duels and had never lost. His sword, shaped like a curved fang, shimmered with pure energy. The moment he stepped into the arena, the energy walls flared brighter, reacting to his power. His people called him the Blade of Stars. He raised his weapon and shouted to the crowd. They answered with thunderous voices. To them, this duel was already won. Then the eastern gate opened. From the shadowed tunnel walked a human, shorter, lighter, and calm. His clothes were simple training robes, pale gray and worn from travel. No armor, no energy field, no glowing weapon. Only a wooden sword rested on his shoulder. The crowd went silent for a heartbeat. Then laughter spread through the stands. They thought it was a joke. Some shouted in amusement, others in disbelief. A few even threw small chips of metal at the ground near him as a sign of mockery. They could not understand why a human, from a planet known for its fragile flesh and primitive tools, would walk into a duel with a piece of wood. The man's name was Rin. He was not famous, not part of any great order. To the galaxy, he was a nameless traveler who arrived 2 days ago on a small trade ship. When he signed up for the Galactic Duel, everyone thought he was foolish. The registration officer even warned him that his death would not be honored if his weapon was a toy. Rin only smiled and signed his name again. Now he stood under the heat of the suns, quiet and steady. His eyes scanned the arena, then rested on Tarek. The champion's smirk widened. He raised his voice so all could hear. "Human, is that your weapon or your walking stick?" The crowd burst into more laughter. Rin said nothing. He bowed slightly, his hand resting on the wooden sword. His calm made the laughter fade for a moment, as if the air itself had grown still. Then Tarek laughed again, shaking his head. "This will be quick," the alien said. "You will have time to regret your choice in the next life." The announcer's voice echoed through the arena, listing the duel's rules. No outside aid, no interference, and no surrender. The fight would continue until one could no longer stand or yield. The crowd leaned forward as the signal lights above the arena changed color. Red, yellow, green. The duel had not yet begun, but whispers spread among the stands. A group of alien scholars sitting in the higher seats watched Rin closely. One of them, an old creature with long silver tendrils, tilted his head. "That sword," he said softly. "It is carved from organic matter, but the structure is dense. Very old wood, perhaps from Earth's deep forests." His companion, a reptilian diplomat, laughed. "Old or not, it will burn the moment it touches plasma." Down in the field, Rin closed his eyes for a brief moment. He could hear the crowd's heartbeat as one great sound. The wind brushed across the polished stone floor, carrying the dry heat into his skin. He remembered his home, quiet forests, rain-soaked soil, and the sound of wood cracking under pressure. He had trained there for years, learning from a teacher who once told him that a weapon is only as strong as the one who holds it. He opened his eyes again. They were calm and clear. Tarek pointed his glowing blade forward. "Prepare yourself, human," he said. "You will not last long." The crowd roared in agreement. They chanted Tarek's name, their voices shaking the arena walls. Rin adjusted his stance, placing his feet lightly apart. The wooden sword hung low at his side. To the aliens watching, it looked like an untrained position, but to a human warrior, it was the mark of perfect balance. The announcer's voice rang out again, louder this time. "Duelers ready. Begin when the signal flashes." A red light blinked across the arena walls, then turned yellow. Both fighters took a breath. Tarek raised his sword high, energy flickering from its edge like lightning. Rin's grip tightened on the smooth handle of his wooden blade. The crowd counted down from 3. The air pulsed with tension. Just before the signal turned green, a shadow moved across the stands. A large banner of Earth's flag, held by a few humans sitting together. They were travelers too, scattered among the alien crowd. They raised their voices in support of Rin, though their cheers were drowned by the alien laughter. One of them whispered, "Show them what Earth can do." Rin heard that voice faintly, like a breeze in his ear. He nodded once, the signal light flashed green. The crowd screamed as Tarek lunged forward. The champion's first step cracked the stone beneath his feet. His energy blade burned bright as a sunbeam. Every movement of his body was perfect, trained through decades of combat. He swung downward, a strike meant to finish the fight in a single blow. The plasma trail followed his sword like fire, but Rin did not move. At least not yet. He waited until the blade was inches from his shoulder. Then his body shifted slightly. One breath, one heartbeat, one motion. His wooden sword rose gently, not with force but with perfect timing. The plasma blade met it in a flash of light, and for a split second, the entire arena filled with a sharp ringing sound that cut through every voice. The crowd gasped. The energy wall flickered as if something had bent reality for a moment. When the light faded, both fighters stood still. Tarek blinked. He felt a faint vibration run through his arm. His blade, glowing with plasma, had stopped mid-swing. Rin's wooden sword pressed lightly against it, unburned. The wood had not split or cracked. It was impossible. The champion stepped back, confused. The audience shouted in disbelief. The scholars in the upper stands leaned forward. "How did the organic matter resist plasma?" One of them said. "There is no way. It must be a trick." Rin lowered his sword again, silent as ever. His stance did not break. His eyes met Tarek's, and there was no pride in them, only focus. The human looked as calm as when he entered. The announcer hesitated, unsure whether to continue the duel or pause for inspection. But the crowd demanded more. They shouted for Tarek to attack again, to show no mercy. The champion snarled and swung again, faster and stronger, his blade cutting through the air with glowing arcs. Rin moved like a shadow, each motion precise and controlled. His wooden sword met every strike, redirecting the force instead of clashing with it. To the crowd it looked like magic, but to Rin, it was the same training he had followed since childhood. The art of flow, not resistance. After several exchanges, Tarek stepped back again, breathing harder. He had never been forced into defense by anyone, much less a human. His armor glowed from the heat of his own energy blade, but Rin's sword looked untouched. The crowd's cheers had turned to murmurs. Even those who mocked the human now watched in silence. The announcer called for a short pause, claiming it was part of the opening phase of the duel. Rin lowered his sword and bowed again, showing respect to his opponent. Tarek did the same, though his pride burned inside him. As the pause began, one of the alien judges whispered to another, "Perhaps the wood is coated with some unknown element." The other replied, "Perhaps the human himself is." Rin stood alone in the center of the arena. The wind blew across the field, carrying grains of golden dust that sparkled in the sunlight. He closed his eyes again and whispered a silent thought to himself. He was far from Earth, surrounded by those who doubted him, but he did not come here to prove them wrong. He came to prove his teacher right. The duel was not yet over. The real test had just begun. The crowd was restless during the short pause. The sound of voices rolled across the great arena like waves. Some shouted for the fight to continue, while others whispered in confusion about the strange human who blocked plasma with wood. The heat of the twin suns pressed down on every spectator, but no one left their seats. Even the merchants who sold glowing drinks along the stands had stopped shouting prices. Everyone watched the center field where Rin stood calm, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. Tarek paced on the other side. His armor glowed faintly, the power inside it pulsing with anger. He had never been forced to retreat before. He could still feel the small vibration in his arm from that first clash. He looked at the edge of his blade. There was a faint mark where it had met the wooden sword, a thin scar of black. It made no sense. No natural wood could touch plasma without turning to ash. The announcer's voice echoed again, trying to keep the crowd entertained. "Ladies and warriors of Vornis, what a sight we have today. A human challenger who dares bring a stick against our champion Tarek. Perhaps courage truly blinds reason." The audience laughed again, though less confidently than before. The laughter carried a nervous edge, like they were unsure whether they should still mock. Tarek turned to the human. "You got lucky, Earthman. My first swing was too light. You will not block the next." Rin opened his eyes and looked at him. His voice was calm and polite. "Luck is not what brought me here, but you may test your strength again if you wish." The alien warriors sitting near the arena wall shouted insults at him. "You think your toy can cut through armor?" One yelled. "Humans hide behind machines, not swords." Another said. A few even laughed so hard that their armor plates rattled. To them, Rin's calm looked like arrogance. They could not see the years of practice behind his stillness. Inside the field, Tarek walked closer, lowering his sword. His voice carried across the arena. "Tell me, human, why bring such a useless weapon? Do you want to die holding a memory from your forest world?" Rin looked down at his wooden blade. The surface was smooth, polished by hand. A faint pattern of old tree rings was visible under the light. He spoke softly. "This sword was carved from the heartwood of a tree that stood longer than any city on my world. It grew through storms and lightning. It did not break then. It will not break now." Tarek gave a dry laugh. "Stories from your home will not save you. This is not a forest. This is war. Every field is a kind of forest," Rin said. "You only need to listen." For a brief moment, even the crowd fell silent, unsure what to make of his words. Then the announcer's voice broke the quiet again. "Enough talk. Prepare for the next phase of the duel." The energy walls surrounding the arena brightened as the second phase began. Small orbs of light floated above the field, marking the duel zones. The air vibrated with energy. Every duel was divided into 3 phases, each with higher intensity. The second phase allowed the use of power augmentation. It meant that Tarek could now increase his strength with his armor's core. The crowd cheered wildly. Tarek raised his blade, activating the armor. A bright aura of blue light surrounded him, and the floor cracked under his boots. His voice thundered through the speakers. "No human has ever lasted past the first phase against me. You will learn why I am called the Blade of Stars." Rin took a deep breath. He adjusted his stance, right foot slightly behind, sword low again. His wooden blade did not glow, did not hum with power. It looked ordinary, but there was something in his posture that made the air around him feel still, as if the wind itself waited for his move. The signal light flashed again. The crowd counted down. When it turned green, Tarek moved first. His body vanished in a blur of blue light. The speed was unreal, faster than any human eye could follow. He swung horizontally, aiming for Rin's waist, a blow meant to slice through even reinforced steel. But Rin stepped back half a pace, letting the blade pass through empty air. He countered with a simple motion, a small twist of his wrist that brought his sword up in a rising arc. The wooden blade met Tarek's arm just below the elbow. It was not a full strike, just a touch, yet the sound of impact was sharp and heavy. Tarek staggered back, shocked. His armor sensors flashed warnings. Something had disrupted the energy flow in that section. The audience gasped again. The judges checked their readings, confused. The announcer's voice trembled slightly now. "It appears the human has landed a successful contact. Could it be a lucky strike? Or is this something else?" Tarek gritted his teeth. He felt his pride burn hotter than the suns above. "Enough tricks," he shouted. He swung again and again, each strike faster than the last. Plasma light filled the arena, making it hard for even the cameras to keep track. Rin's movement stayed smooth. He turned, stepped, and redirected each attack with the least possible effort. Every time their swords met, Tarek's armor vibrated more. The wood seemed to hum with each block, as if absorbing and returning the force. A child in the stands whispered to his father, "The human is dancing." His father nodded, eyes wide. "No, he is flowing," he said. After nearly 20 strikes, Tarek stopped and backed away, breathing hard. His armor was glowing from heat. The energy field around him flickered. He had never had to fight like this before. His strikes were strong enough to crush most opponents, but this human was not only defending, he was reading him. "How?" Tarek demanded. "How can you move like that with no armor, no tech?" Rin looked at him calmly. "You swing to destroy. I move to understand. That is the difference." The crowd had gone silent again. Only the wind moved through the arena now, carrying fine grains of dust across the floor. The announcer struggled to find words. "The champion is on the defensive. The human challenger stands firm. Could this be a turn of fate?" Tarek's eyes glowed faintly as his armor drew more energy. He shouted in his native language, and the power around him surged brighter. The air cracked with static. The ground trembled under his feet. He raised his blade for a vertical strike, pouring all his strength into it. The move was known as Starfall, a technique that had ended every duel before this one. The heat of it melted the top layer of stone where he stood. Rin did not move. His breathing slowed. His grip loosened slightly, almost as if he were letting go. When the strike came, it was like a comet falling from the sky. The noise shook the entire arena. A wave of light burst out, reaching the stands. Dust flew everywhere. Many covered their faces, unable to see. For several seconds, nothing was visible through the storm. When the air cleared, both figures stood still again. The crowd waited, holding its breath. Tarek's blade was buried halfway into the ground, steam rising from it. Rin's wooden sword rested lightly against the flat of the plasma blade, holding it in place. The ground around Rin's feet was unmarked. He had not even taken a step back. Tarek stared in disbelief. His armor's sensors screamed overload warnings. The energy in his weapon had been redirected down instead of forward. Rin had turned the strike's full force into the ground without taking damage. Rin stepped back and lowered his sword. His voice was quiet. You fight with strength. But strength without focus breaks itself. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some shouted in awe, others in anger. A few even began cheering for the human. The announcer raised his voice again, though it trembled with excitement. The human has survived the starfall. This has never happened in the history of the duels. The judges began to discuss whether to continue the fight or pause again. Tarek raised a hand, stopping them. No, he said. It continues. He looked at Rin, his earlier mockery gone. There was respect now, mixed with stubborn pride. You are no fool, human, but I will not be humiliated in my home. Rin nodded. Then do not fight to protect your name. Fight to find your truth. The words hit harder than any blade. For the first time, Tarek felt uncertain. The human spoke like a teacher, not an opponent. He tightened his grip and prepared for another round. The air between them shimmered with tension. Even the sun seemed to dim slightly, as if watching. The announcer raised his hand again. Third phase to begin shortly. Both duelers prepare. As the lights dimmed for the next stage, Rin walked to the center and placed his sword upright for a moment. The wooden surface caught the faint sunlight, glowing softly. The sound of the crowd faded in his mind. He remembered his teacher's voice once more. Do not fight the storm. Become the calm within it. He picked up his sword again and turned toward his opponent. Across the field, Tarek stood ready, breathing deeply. The laughter that once filled the arena was gone now. What remained was silence, heavy and expectant. The duel that had begun as mockery was now something greater. The warriors of Vornis had stopped laughing. They were watching a human redefine what strength meant, and the final phase was still to come. The arena lights dimmed for a moment as the third and final phase of the duel prepared to begin. The energy walls surrounding the field grew brighter, their color shifting from gold to deep crimson. This was the phase that separated true warriors from the rest. Every champion who reached it had risked life and honor to stand here. It was where all restraint was dropped, and raw strength decided the outcome. Rin stood in silence at the center of the arena, his wooden sword lowered by his side. He could hear the hum of the power grids under the floor. He could feel the tension in the air, heavy like thunder before a storm. The crowd's voices had softened to murmurs. They no longer mocked him. Many of them leaned forward, eyes fixed on the strange human who had turned a simple piece of wood into a weapon of wonder. On the opposite side, Tarek took a deep breath. His armor's inner systems recharged with energy, lines of light tracing across his chest and arms. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought about every duel he had fought. None of them had ever forced him this far. None of them had ever made him feel fear. Yet now, standing across from a calm human with no armor and no glowing blade, a quiet unease settled inside him. The announcer's voice echoed again, slower this time, filled with gravity. This is the final phase. Both duelers may use full ability. Victory or defeat will be declared at the end of this phase only. May the honor of combat guide you. The crowd responded with a thunderous roar. Flags waved across the stands and the sound of drums filled the air. But Rin did not move. His eyes were on Tarek alone. He had seen warriors who fought for fame, for pride, and for power. Tarek had started this duel for those reasons too. Yet now, Rin sensed something different in the alien's movements. Beneath the anger, there was curiosity. Tarek wanted to understand what he faced. The signal light blinked from red to green. Tarek moved first. His entire body surged forward like a comet, blue energy streaking behind him. His sword cut through the air with the force of a storm. The ground cracked under his steps and the energy walls trembled from the pressure. Every swing was a flash of light, each one stronger and faster than before. The sound was deafening. Rin's movements were calm and precise. He stepped, turned, and guided his sword in small arcs, redirecting every strike. His wooden blade met the plasma edge again and again, sending sparks in all directions. The sound of each clash echoed like thunderclaps. The audience could barely follow the motion. What looked like two streaks of light raced around the field, colliding and separating again. In the stands, a group of alien scholars recorded the readings. Their instruments showed impossible results. The human sword emitted no measurable energy, yet it deflected plasma that burned hotter than a star's surface. The scientists whispered among themselves, unable to explain it. Tarek growled and swung again, using his full power. The force of his strike shattered part of the arena floor, sending debris flying. Rin jumped lightly, landing a few steps away. He raised his wooden sword and looked at his opponent. His breathing was calm, his posture steady. "You fight harder now," Rin said. "I fight for my honor," Tarek replied. "Then fight with your spirit, not your pride." Tarek's jaw tightened. His anger flared again. He charged forward and unleashed a spinning strike that sent waves of plasma outward in a circle. The heat was unbearable. Some of the spectators shielded their faces as the energy wave hit the walls. But inside that ring of light, Rin moved through the heat as if walking through wind. His body flowed like water, every motion blending into the next. His sword rose once, met the attack, and sent the energy scattering upward harmlessly into the sky. The crowd gasped. Even Tarek stopped for a heartbeat, stunned. Rin pointed his sword toward the ground. "You are strong, but your heart is noisy," he said quietly. "You must still it." Tarek roared and charged again. His attacks came faster, each swing aiming for a vital point. Rin met them all. The wood in his hands moved like it was alive, each contact sending out a shockwave of controlled force. Slowly, Tarek's rhythm began to break. His movements grew heavier. Sweat formed on his forehead under the helmet. He had never fought someone who drained his strength without striking back. The spectators could feel the shift. The energy that once surrounded Tarek now seemed unstable. Rin had taken control of the rhythm of the duel. Every sound, every breath, every step belonged to him now. It was as if the whole arena moved to his calm heartbeat. At the judges' table, the head referee whispered to his assistant, "The human is teaching him while fighting." The assistant nodded in disbelief. "He is turning battle into a lesson." Back on the field, Tarek tried one final trick. His armor's chest plate opened slightly, releasing a burst of blinding light and sound meant to stun. It was an old warrior technique known as the flash pulse. He swung through the glare, hoping to catch Rin off guard, but when the light cleared, Rin was gone. The crowd gasped again. For a second, no one could see the human. Then a voice came from behind Tarek. "Too loud," Rin said calmly. Tarek spun around. Rin was standing behind him, his wooden sword resting lightly on his shoulder. No dust, no burn marks, no sign of damage. He had moved through the flash pulse without effort. "How did you do that?" Tarek asked, his voice low. Rin looked at him with quiet eyes. "You see light. I see movement. You hear noise. I hear silence. You swing with power. I swing with purpose." The words cut deeper than any blade. Tarek lowered his weapon slightly, breathing heavily. "Then finish it," he said. "Show me what you are." Rin nodded once. "Very well." He raised his sword slowly. The air around him changed. Even those in the stands could feel it. The calm grew deeper, almost unnatural. The noise of the crowd faded. The hum of the energy walls dimmed. It was as if the entire world had taken a breath and held it. Tarek braced himself, gripping his sword tightly with both hands. He gathered all his energy into one final strike. His armor glowed white, brighter than before. He took his stance, the same one he used to end every duel. Rin closed his eyes for a moment. His breathing slowed until it could barely be seen. His left hand touched the wooden blade gently, like greeting an old friend. When he opened his eyes again, they were calm and focused. Both warriors moved at the same time. Tarek's blade descended with the full force of his armor's power. The energy tore through the air like a thunderstorm. Rin stepped forward and swung once, a small, clean motion that looked almost too simple. The sound that followed was not a clash, but a single clear note like the ring of a bell. Everything stopped. The energy walls flickered. The arena went silent. Even the crowd forgot to breathe. For a long moment, both fighters stood still. Then Tarek's sword fell from his hands. The metal split in two, each half sliding smoothly apart. His armor's light faded and he dropped to one knee. There was no wound, no blood, only the clean end of the fight. Rin stood before him, his wooden sword still in his hand. The surface glowed faintly from the heat of the strike. He looked at Tarek, then lowered the weapon. "It is over," Rin said. Tarek looked up, breathing hard. His voice trembled slightly. "I did not even see the cut." "You were not meant to," Rin replied. "You were meant to feel it." The crowd erupted, their roar shaking the walls. Some shouted in disbelief, others in awe. The alien scholars began writing furiously, trying to understand what had just happened. The announcer's voice was almost lost in the noise as he declared the human the winner of the duel. Tarek looked at Rin again. His pride had been broken, but in its place was respect. He bowed his head slowly. "You are the first who has shown me the meaning of defeat." Rin bowed in return. "And you are the first who accepted it with honor." The audience's roar continued. Many aliens who had mocked humans before now looked at the lone man in the arena with new eyes. They saw not weakness, but mastery. Not power, but peace. Rin's wooden sword had done what no metal blade could. It had cut through pride, through noise, through doubt. As the arena lights returned to normal, Rin turned and began to walk toward the exit. The judges followed him with their eyes, still whispering in shock. Behind him, Tarek rose slowly and stared at the broken pieces of his plasma sword. He picked up one half and studied it. A faint smile touched his face. For the first time in years, he felt lighter. The crowd kept cheering, but Rin did not turn back. His steps were steady and quiet. He walked as if nothing great had happened. To him, the duel had never been about victory. It had been about showing truth through simplicity. The wooden sword, though plain and ancient, had spoken louder than any machine. And the legend of the human who ended the duel in one cut was only beginning to spread across the stars. The arena slowly quieted as Rin walked across the polished stone. The cheers of the crowd still echoed in the stands, but many faces now showed awe instead of mockery. Alien warriors whispered to each other, trying to understand what had happened. The energy walls that had roared moments before were now still, glowing softly as if in respect. Rin's wooden sword rested lightly in his hand, its surface warm from the friction of battle. He moved calmly, each step measured, careful not to disturb the silence that seemed to follow him like a shadow. Tarek remained on the ground for a moment longer. His chest heaved, his breathing heavy under the helmet. The broken plasma sword lay at his side, yet he felt no anger, only something new. Humility. He reached out and touched the wood of Rin's sword. It felt solid and light, almost like it was alive. A strange calmness filled him as he held it. He had fought countless battles with metal and energy, yet never had a weapon taught him patience, focus, and balance as this one had. Rin looked at Tarek with quiet eyes. "This sword is not about strength," he said. "It is about control. It is about knowing your movement before it even begins." His voice carried lightly over the arena, soft but clear. "You fight with power. You fight to dominate. That is why your strength can be broken by something simple." The words hung in the air. Tarek's mind worked quickly, trying to understand. He had never considered fighting this way. To him, every duel had been about who could strike harder and faster. The idea that a weapon, ordinary in appearance, could redirect energy without technology was beyond him. Yet here it was. Rin had demonstrated it, and the evidence was in the broken plasma sword. A group of judges approached cautiously. One of them, a tall alien with silver-tipped horns, spoke first. "Human, what is this technique? Your weapon shows no energy signature, yet it redirected the plasma of a starfall strike. Explain yourself." The crowd fell silent, awaiting the answer. Even the most skeptical warriors leaned forward, curious. Rin held the wooden sword upright and looked at it as if seeing it for the first time. "It is not the sword that does this. It is the one who wields it. The wood is only a channel. It holds intention, focus, and the knowledge of years of practice. My teacher once told me that a sword is an extension of the soul. If your soul is calm, your strikes do not harm yourself. If your soul is focused, you can guide the strongest energy safely." Tarek listened, astonished. His voice trembled slightly when he spoke. You call a stick an extension of the soul, and yet it defeated my plasma blade. I have fought warriors stronger than me, faster than me, and none have come close to this. He paused, looking at the sword again. Teach me. Show me how this is possible. Rin nodded once. It is not a secret hidden in the blade. It is in practice and discipline and in understanding every movement before it occurs. Power without control is noise. Control without understanding is empty. Strength flows where it is guided. The audience continued to watch in silence. Some were cheering quietly, but many simply stared. The idea that a human, a species considered fragile and weak, could teach a champion of Vornis the principles of combat was difficult to accept. It went against centuries of expectation, against every story they had been told about human weakness. And yet it was true. Rin had demonstrated it in the simplest form, a wooden sword. A young alien warrior from the stands, barely old enough to wield a practice blade, called out. Master, can anyone become as strong as you with a wooden sword? Rin looked toward the voice. He could see the wonder in the alien's eyes mixed with hesitation. He smiled gently. Strength is not built in the weapon, Rin replied. It is built in the one who trains every day, who listens to themselves and who learns to move with intention. The sword is only a mirror of your will. The young alien nodded slowly, absorbing the words. It was a lesson that no one had expected to hear at the Galactic Duel Festival. Tarek rose to his feet, slowly, still holding part of his broken weapon. He bowed to Rin, the gesture of respect deep and sincere. I underestimated you, he admitted. Not because you are human, but because I thought only force matters. Today, I have learned the truth. You have opened my eyes. The words carried weight, and the crowd noticed. Even those who had been skeptical began to murmur their agreement. The champion had been humbled not by technology or machines, but by focus, patience, and understanding. Rin lowered his sword and spoke softly. This duel is not about pride. It is about mastery. You fought with honor. That is what matters most. Remember that even when you face stronger opponents, calm and clarity will guide you better than blind power. A few spectators began clapping quietly, and the applause spread. Soon the entire arena erupted in a combination of awe and celebration. Aliens who had mocked humans before now looked at Rin with respect. Some whispered that humans must be a species of unusual skill, not easily measured by technology or physical strength. Others discussed the lesson that the duel had taught, that discipline and focus could surpass power and equipment, no matter how advanced. Rin turned and walked toward the exit of the arena. The wooden sword rested easily in his hands, not heavy, not fragile, just balanced. Tarek followed, silent, carrying the broken pieces of his weapon. As they left the field, the crowd continued to cheer, but many eyes stayed on Rin, studying his every step. The humans who had traveled to Vornis raised their own voices in quiet celebration. They understood the significance of what had just happened. A human had shown the galaxy that discipline and skill could surpass technology and raw power. Outside the arena, Rin paused briefly. The twin suns shone down, their heat intense but not uncomfortable. He looked at Tarek, who had fallen silent beside him. You asked to learn, Rin said gently. The path is long, but it begins with the understanding of yourself. Are you ready to walk it? Tarek nodded, his usual arrogance replaced with humility. I am, he said simply. I have never known such control. Teach me, Rin smiled lightly. Then we begin. The crowd outside the arena began to discuss what they had seen. The story would spread quickly across the galaxy. Not a story of human weakness, as many had believed, but of human ingenuity and spirit. A story of patience, focus, and the strange power that came from understanding rather than dominating. The wooden sword, simple and unassuming, had become a symbol. It represented not only Rin's skill, but the idea that humans could achieve the impossible through discipline. As Rin and Tarek moved into a training hall beyond the arena, the alien judges whispered among themselves. We have witnessed a shift in understanding today, one said. The human has shown a level of mastery beyond what we expected. Another nodded. Perhaps it is time to rethink what we know about other species. Strength is not always measured in power. Today, it is measured in control. In the hall, Rin demonstrated the first lessons to Tarek. Each movement was simple but precise. Rin explained the importance of balance, timing, and awareness. He showed how even a wooden sword could control the force of an energy weapon when used correctly. Tarek followed carefully, trying to mimic the motions, but he struggled at first. His years of reliance on technology made it difficult to slow down and feel the flow of energy. Rin corrected him gently, demonstrating again and again until Tarek began to understand. Each movement was deliberate, each step calculated, each breath controlled the body and the mind. Hours passed. Tarek's armor was removed and his body moved freely. The broken plasma sword was set aside. The focus was now entirely on the wooden blade. Slowly, Tarek began to feel the weight not of the weapon but of his own movements. He began to sense the timing, the flow, and the direction of force. Rin guided him patiently, never harshly, never rushing. It was a process unlike anything Tarek had experienced. The champion who had relied on raw strength now learned patience and awareness. By the time evening arrived, the lesson had begun to take hold. Tarek could block several of Rin's strikes without relying on energy. The wooden sword became a channel for his movements. He was not yet a master, but he had begun to understand. For the first time, he realized that strength alone was not enough to win every duel. The human had not only defeated him, but had begun to teach him something that no amount of armor or power could achieve. The sun set over the arena, casting long shadows across the field. The crowd had long left, but the story had begun to spread. Rumors would travel quickly. A human had bested a Vornis champion with a wooden sword. Aliens from neighboring planets would hear of it. Warriors who had dismissed humans as weak would reconsider. The wooden sword had become a symbol not of primitive technology but of discipline, mastery, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. The sun had set fully over the arena, leaving long shadows that stretched across the field. The air was cooler now, but the memory of the day's duel still hung in every corner of the great stands. Merchants, scholars, and warriors alike had left the arena, carrying their own impressions of what they had witnessed. Stories of Rin, the human with a wooden sword, had already begun to spread from one city to the next, traveling faster than any message sent through technology. Some whispered of magic, some of skill, but all agreed that something extraordinary had occurred. Rin walked calmly through the empty arena. The polished stones under his feet reflected the soft glow of the twin moons rising above Vornis. His wooden sword rested lightly on his shoulder. For him, the fight had never been about pride or recognition. It had been a demonstration of discipline, patience, and focus. Every movement, every step in the duel had been a choice born from years of practice and understanding. Tarek followed behind him, carrying the broken pieces of his plasma sword. He was silent, but the usual aura of arrogance that surrounded him had disappeared. In its place was respect, humility, and curiosity. For a warrior who had never been defeated without injury, the experience was humbling. He had faced countless foes and wielded weapons that could tear through entire fleets. But today, a human had shown him that strength alone could not conquer control. "You fight differently," Tarek said finally, his voice carrying softly across the arena. "On Vornis, we train to strike, to overpower, to dominate. You do none of these, yet you have defeated me." He paused, looking at Rin. "Teach me. I want to learn what you know." Rin stopped and turned. His eyes were calm, steady, and gentle. "The lesson is simple," he said. "It is not about the weapon. It is about the one who wields it. The sword, no matter its material, only carries the intention of its user. To control it fully, you must first control yourself." Tarek knelt briefly, bowing his head to show his sincerity. "I have never been taught this way. I have relied on armor, energy, and strength. Today I see that all that power is empty without focus." Rin nodded. "Control without understanding is empty. Power without patience is dangerous. When you learn to flow with the moment, to see the movement before it happens, the strongest attack can become harmless." Together, they moved toward the training hall beyond the arena. The building was simple but functional, designed to teach warriors of all species the fundamentals of combat. Rin began demonstrating the basics of his style. Each movement was simple, precise, and deliberate. He showed how the wooden sword could redirect force without force itself. Tarek followed carefully, attempting to imitate the motions, but it was clear that his years of fighting with heavy energy weapons made the subtle motions difficult at first. "Your movements are too rigid," Rin said, correcting Tarek gently. "Relax your body. Let it respond to the attack, not anticipate it with anger. Flow, do not push." Tarek tried again, slower this time. He felt the energy of the arena in his own body. His steps began to follow a rhythm he had never noticed. The motions of the wooden sword began to make sense. Each swing, each block, each movement was not just about stopping the opponent but guiding them, understanding them, and controlling the outcome without relying solely on power. Hours passed. Rin demonstrated, Tarek followed, and slowly the alien warrior began to grasp the principle. He could feel the strike before it came, redirect it with a soft motion and maintain balance without strain. The wooden sword, so simple and unremarkable to the eye, became an extension of his own body. He understood that it was not the material of the sword but the discipline and focus of the user that made it effective. Outside the hall, the story of Rin's victory had already begun to reach distant planets. Warriors and scholars discussed the events in groups, debating whether humans were truly so skilled or if luck had simply played a role. Many who had once dismissed humans now reconsidered. They realized that the human spirit, calm and focused, could achieve what the most powerful technologies could not. For the first time, humans were not measured by their machines but by their mastery. Back in the training hall, Tarek finally executed a move correctly, redirecting a strike without energy, without force, using only control and awareness. Rin watched silently, then nodded. You see now. Strength is not always visible. The true warrior does not rely on power alone. The mind and spirit guide every movement. Tarek lowered his head in respect. I will never forget this. My pride is tempered, my mind sharper, and my understanding deeper. You have given me more than a lesson in combat. You have given me a lesson in life, Rin smiled faintly. That is the greatest lesson of all. A weapon cannot teach humility. Only experience, practice, and understanding can. Remember this when you face the next challenge. Outside the arena, night fully settled. The twin moons reflected off the energy walls, and the city of Vornis glowed faintly in the distance. Messages had already begun traveling to other arenas and planetary stations. Rin's name, the human with the wooden sword, was on every tongue. He had changed perceptions of his species and inspired admiration across the galaxy. A young alien warrior approached Tarek while he continued practicing. Master, why do you train with him? The human is small and unarmed. What can he teach a champion like you? Tarek looked at the wooden sword resting in Rin's hands. He thought of the duel, the precise blocks, and the calm movements that had redirected all his power. He smiled, gently placing a hand on the young warrior's shoulder. True strength, he said, comes not from weapons, energy, or armor. It comes from the mind, the spirit, and the understanding of yourself. Today a human taught me that. One day it will teach you too. The young warrior nodded, wide-eyed, finally understanding. The lesson was deeper than combat. It was about respect, focus, and mastery of oneself. For the first time, he saw humans not as fragile beings, but as creatures of unique skill and quiet power. Rin prepared to leave the training hall. The wooden sword had been a test, a symbol, and a teacher all in one. He carried it simply, without pride or show, yet it had spoken louder than any weapon of steel or plasma could. Tarek followed, now Rin's student and admirer, ready to continue learning the ways of focus and discipline that had overcome raw power. The night sky stretched wide above Vornis, stars shining like jewels. The humans who had traveled to see Rin cheered quietly. They had seen the impossible. One human, armed only with a wooden sword, had changed the way an entire species saw strength and skill. The story of the duel would travel far and wide, inspiring not only aliens but humans across many planets. It was a reminder that true power is not measured in force but in control, understanding, and mastery of the self. As Rin walked down the path leading from the arena, Tarek followed beside him, carrying no weapons. The two warriors moved together, one teaching, the other learning, both aware that this day had changed more than a single duel. It had changed the perception of an entire galaxy. The wooden sword, simple and unassuming, had left a legacy far greater than its size suggested. Rin stopped for a moment and looked up at the stars. The duel is over, he said softly. But the journey is just beginning. Tarek looked at him, understanding completely. Then we will continue together. Your lesson will guide me, and one day I will pass it on to others. The human nodded. That is how strength grows, not through pride nor power, but through teaching, learning, and understanding. The galaxy will remember that lesson long after this duel is forgotten. They walked into the night, leaving the arena behind. The wooden sword remained a symbol, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving and that even the simplest tool, when guided by focus and mastery, could achieve greatness. Across the stars, tales would be told of Rin, the human who had ended a duel with one cut, and the champion Tarek, who learned the quiet power of control. It was a story of respect, humility, and the unique strength of the human spirit. The twin moons cast their light over the path. The stars reflected on the faces of those who had witnessed the duel. Aliens whispered to each other, passing on the story, sharing the lesson. Humans, once underestimated, were now seen differently. It was not strength or size that mattered, but heart, discipline, and the will to master oneself. Rin had shown them that with calm, focus, and courage, even the simplest weapon could become unstoppable. The wooden sword would be remembered as a symbol of human ingenuity and the quiet strength that no technology could replace. The galaxy had changed its view of humanity, all because of one duel, one human, and one wooden sword.